Hello and welcome to another anime lore and theory video. I'm Shergok, your host, and today we are going to take a closer look at the Dragonlords, their downfall, and if they could have won their fight against the 8 Great Kings, the players who thereafter conquered the entire continent in a short time, but then destroyed themselves in their own civil war. But before we're going to take a closer look at any of this, let me quickly thank my Patreons for supporting this channel, and for choosing today's topic from the monthly poll, as well as a thanks to all users of the YouTube thanks function for making one-time donations. And with that said, let's get to the topic at hand. 500 years before the appearance of Dragonlords in the new world of Overlord, and 100 years after the 6 great gods who founded the theocracy of Slain, the 8 kings of greed presumably emerged just as suddenly, out of nowhere, a floating fortress hovered over the sky of the new world. Such a sight might well have served as the catalyst for the ensuing conflict between the dragons and the kings, because both sides might have perceived each other's aerial presence as an intrusion into their own territory, which then would have quickly escalated into an apocalyptic war. Alternatively, the 8 kings could have used their power to conquer and subjugate everything consumed by wealth, power and glory, a set of traits seen in one of their descendants, because Dakem Hugin was endlessly arrogant and condescending to basically everyone, without even realizing it most of the time. An aggressive blend of snob, tyrant, war criminal, and vile personality whose death was mourned only for its brevity. If the 8 kings behaved this way, then in my opinion the dragons of the new world might indeed have a chance to stand against them. However, due to their immense power, they made a colossal mistake that Dragonlords did not make. They were arrogant and greedy to the extreme, according to all sources that we have, a weakness that could also have been exploited. Unfortunately, we don't have exact details on how the war unfolded, and on certain battles or something like that. But we know that some dragons did not participate, that other players fought against the 8 kings, and some events involving Platinum's mother and father, because the mother was, as it seemed, attacked by the players, and the father did then something horribly, likely back in return. But in the end, the 8 kings triumphed, shattering the power of the dragons and decimating them. However, we know that there are still modern dragons like the Deep Darkness Dragonlord around, and of course like Platinum, both of whom have eliminated players, with Deep Darkness even defeating a player wielding a world item. Platinum is also aware of world items, suggesting he might have similarly defeated a player using one in the past. And Cure Elim also trained for centuries to become strong enough to defeat players, which also implies that the dragons of the past could potentially all have been as powerful as players. Just as they were weaker NPCs in Nezarec, of course, there would also be probably weaker Dragonlords, and similar like some weaker NPCs among the 8 Great Kings as well, so it was more or less balanced, at least in the potential of strength. But again, sadly we don't know the exact numbers and troop composition and how many dragons were even left at the start of the war and at its end. And this brings us to the first strategy the Dragonlords should have employed to improve their chances of victory. They should have mobilized all dragons, not just the majority, and they should not have asked them to do so. They should have mobilized them, as they seem to need every ounce of strength they could muster. In other words, an all-or-nothing situation, a do-or-die situation, should have been created, where every dragon fought, and not just the dragons, because we know there were also other powerful species that the 8 kings ultimately eliminated. Because after the Dragonlords were eliminated, individual kingdoms and tribes were faced with a significant portions of the king's power, and this led them, on their own, to being quickly and hopelessly defeated, without being able to put up a real fight and a real resistance. And as mentioned in other videos, the attack of the 8 Great Kings was so devastating that the average level dropped significantly because so many strong individuals and species perished during their conquest. And therefore, besides the dragons, countless other strong beings in the New World would also have been needed for another purpose, to hold back the likely sheer mass of powerful NPCs in the Guild of the Eight Kings, because besides themselves, they will likely had an entire army of mercenary NPCs and custom-made NPCs, like for example the kind Demiurge and Sebastian belong to, and the Eight Kings floating fortress housed likely also vast numbers of other enemies, pop monsters, because they just pop into existence, and similar to Nezric's skeleton army and lower class undead. These pop monsters that appeared endlessly in the guild base of the Eight Great Kings were likely on a similar level, and this endlessly respawning cannon fodder needed to be countered somehow. Even if the dragons could roast each one repeatedly without suffering any losses or injuries with dragonfire, the dragons still would also tire out, as the battle itself would also consume their mana, their stamina, and resources that are needed elsewhere. So, all the powerful realms of the New World would have been needed here, especially other powerful beings like giants, who come extremely close to the dragons in sheer strength. And we know that the frost giants from the Mountain of Asalesia, for example, nearly match the frost dragon Olasir Dar Kaelilial in strength. And he, like Walder Frey from Game of Thrones, fathered numerous children to counter the frost giants. And again, back in the days, 500 years ago, the dragons and also likely the giants were a lot stronger. And even if the giants were only as strong as a level 60 or level 70 monster, 6 of them could potentially take down a level 100 NPC, which would ease the dragon's burden immensely. And the motto here would be fight together or fall divided. And this whole situation likely extends even further, because we know it wasn't just the dragons who had a problem with the Eight Great Kings. In a conference, the leaders of Slayn also confirmed that the Eight Kings killed Surshanar, their own god of death. Ironic, I know. So there was clearly a conflict there as well, and both Slayn and the last of their gods fought against the Eight Kings. But it seems to me that the dragons perceived all beings from Yggdrasil Online, or players from various guilds that even fought among themselves, as basically the same faction, as just different strains of the same bacteria, and therefore it appears they never even considered allying with the theocracy or possibly with other players as well. And the relationship between the theocracy of Slayn and Platinum is still icy to this very day. And there's fear on Slayn's side of a military conflict, and the relationship between the theocracy of Slayn and Platinum is still icy to this very day. And there was even fear on Slayn's side of a military conflict that would end them if they dared to use Seshi against the Elf King. And this perspective shows that an alliance between players and Dragonlords had considerable lost potential, at least as far as we know, or rather as we can speculate. And despite everything I've said here, there's still the question of whether the dragons actually lost the war or merely suffered a Pyrrhic victory. Because the Dragonlords, though heavily decimated and having lost countless battles, survived, but the Eight Kings did not. Perhaps the alliance between Slayn and the dragons really did happen, although it was something out of necessity, an alliance of converging interests and nothing more. And perhaps, thanks to the dragon's remaining might, one of the kings was controlled via downfall of castle and country, and then he was made to trigger a civil war among the kings themselves. And this would also explain why Slayn maintained their faith, as the kings who killed Surshanar likely didn't look favorable upon a human nation that still worshipped their enemy as a deity. But if the king who defeated Surshanar was perhaps lured out by a Dragonlord, and then placed under mind control by his followers, possibly with the help of Rufus, the first of the followers of Surshanar, who even might have found a suitable bearer for the world-class item, then the subsequent civil war of the Eight Kings would have taken on a whole new meaning as well. However, against this fury stands the fact that Platinum apparently prevented Slane from sending Zashi against her own father, the Elven King, someone with player blood in his veins, simply because she had player blood in her veins as well. In other words, the dragons may have failed because they couldn't precisely distinguish between friend and foe, or they didn't understand that not every player wished them harm, and that cooperation was possible. After all, the 6 great gods from Slane had already been in the New World for 100 years before the 8 kings appeared, so at least peaceful coexistence could happen. And with that said, now it's your turn. What do you think about the dragons, and what do you think the dragons could have done in order to win against the 8 kings? And if you think that the alliance with Slane and the Dragonlords have happened at the very last second, or do you think it was something that Slane could pull off just using the limited forces that they had available? Or perhaps maybe this was all just a coincidence and no mind control has taken place. Again, let me know it down in the comment section. And with that said, please check out my German channel, my fantasy channel, and if you don't want to listen to my voice or accent, but are still interested in the things I have to say, I have made an AI channel, narrated by almost a woman, where I use AI voiceovers for my videos. And the channels are all linked down in the video description. Also, please check out my Patreons if you want to support me beyond just leaving a like or sub. And with that said, thank you very much for watching, thanks to my Patreons for supporting this channel, and special thanks to Ada Daddy Ada, ASK, Bad Guy Ye, Bad Burrito 316, Bezer, Ben C, Brandon D, Chrissy, Crowley 022 Ron, Sia, Crystal Prime, Dead Slime, Death is Mercy, Deathless Dragonlord, Demon Xenomorph 1987, Devin Downen, Ding Dong, Dan Pep, Dragonlord Placido Saxophone, Duckwagon, Dunkler Krieger, Dystopia, Dystopia II, Enigmatic Unicorn, Feral Shivan, Guy with That Head, Hector Marino, Hoss, Huster, Jacob G, Jana B, Jason, J. Morris, Chromius, Kyle R, Lee K. Long, Legendarius, Lelouch V. Britannia with a Mustache, Lexus Fox, Lord Nishikian Rai, Lord Touch Me, Lofrazer, Merovec, Mr. Shoes, Mr. Tweaker, Michael R, Michael Y, Nope, Oh Hell No, Normal Toad, O'Kill, Overlord General Gasper, Paddy Pantum, Personage, Ruru, Primus 11, Rhinomere, Kune Caracos P, Shergox's Daddy, Shadow Lightning Wolf, Shrine Keeper, Sir Axolotl, Super Tier Magic Batista Bomb, Supreme Cheese, Staris, Ted, Texas Deer, The Orc Warboss, Rock Ed Smasher, T.E. Wang, Vash Hawkeye, Vegito 27, Venture Fanatic, Wilhelm, Zinukai, and Sonagon. Thanks guys. Anyway, have a nice day, and I hope to see you all again soon under my next video.